our presidents before. Good morning again. Ladies and gentlemen, I am advised it's very, very cold in the chambers on this floor and in all the back offices and rooms, including the jury rooms, and I understand you're cold, and I apologize for it. The court is doing as best it can to try to see what's the problem, but you shouldn't be inconvenienced the way you are. You shouldn't be freezing. We put in a rush order for Hungarian goose down comforters. It's going to be some time before we get them. I hope that between that time and now that we can do something about the room. I'm sorry. So I apologize. Dr. Shafer, do you acknowledge, sir, you're still under oath and still sworn to tell the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. This is a redirect examination by the people. Mr. Walgren.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Mr. Walden.
Dr. Shafer, you were asked, I believe maybe it was on Friday by Mr. Chernoff regarding your work in this case being pro bono at no charge.
That is correct.
Okay. And that's your custom, not unique to this case, but in any consultation work you do in this type of situation, correct?
Yes, it is.
And in your prior consultation work that you were questioned about, you have worked for both, for example, the side defending the doctor as well as the side alleging wrongdoing by the doctor.
That is correct.
And you have no agenda or principle that requires you to be on one side or the other. You just go with the science. Is that fair?
Correct, sir.
Well, the witness is an expert. I'm going to sustain the objection nevertheless in view of the nature of the question. The answer is stricken. Disregard the last answer. You may re-ask it, Mr. Walgren.
Do you have any agenda or principle to be on one side or the other?
Not at all.
Is it based on the science?
Correct.
And in fact, you've consulted on one side and had opposing counsel ask you to consult for them on future cases.
In one case, that's correct.
Okay.
Witness.
I'll overrule the objection. 802.
And in regard to your beliefs or your reasoning to do pro bono work in these types of situations, do you also follow the same principles in regard to your computer programs and software that you've developed?
Yes.
And is it your custom to publish your programs and your data and your spreadsheet online to make it freely available to other scientists and researchers in your field?
It is.
And why do you do that?
Objection to relevance.
Overruled. You may answer.
It helps promote good science.
And how many programs or spreadsheets do you think you've published online to make freely available to other researchers such as yourself?
Including spreadsheets of my data, it would be well over 100 have been made available. In many of the manuscripts that I publish, the data are published so that other investigators can actually access the data and analyze it. And there's quite a bit of software that's available online that I've written, and spreadsheets.
Thank you, Doctor. What is sedasis?
Sedasis is a system that is being developed by Ethicon Endosurgery to give propofol for sedation.
We have a spelling of that term.
S-E-D-A-S-Y-S.
Thank you.
And what is your involvement with that?
I have chaired an advisory panel since 2003 that has that has advised Ethicon Endosurgery on both the standard of care for sedation and the issues that arise when propofol is used for sedation in order to help develop a machine that can do this safely.
And has your work in that regard been pro bono?
Since 2007, my work for Ethicon Endosurgery for sedasis has been provided pro bono.
And what is stand pump? And I believe that's S-T-A-N-P-U-M-P?
Yeah.
What is that?
Stand Pump is a program that I started develop. It's a computer program. I started developing it in 1986 with Don Stansky. The Stan does not stand for Stansky. It stands for Stanford University. And it was a computer program that used the mathematics we've been talking about, the mathematics of pharmacokinetics. It used the mathematics to give drugs in order to achieve a certain concentration in the body. So if you say, I want a concentration of propofol of 2, we've seen these concentrations, the stand pump program would say, based upon the height and weight of the patient, I know how much drug to give to immediately go to a level of 2 in the plasma and hold it there. And that is a program that I started developing it in 1986, and development of it continued for about 10 to 12 years after that.
And how widely used is that program?
Because I made the program freely available and placed it on various websites that people could download the software, it became the, if you will, the default standard because everybody could access it. And it was incorporated into many other programs by other investigators. And in fact, the pharmacokinetic engine, the part of the program that actually does the math, is taken directly from that and placed into a number of commercial devices. And there's also been Linux versions that have been created by... I'm sorry.
Overruled. You can finish your answer.
Okay.
Lennox?
There's been, again, it's open source. I've made the code freely available, so people have taken it and created Linux versions of it. And it's used as a reference program to say if stand pump predicts something, then that's understood as a reference piece of software.
And you've, again, provided that completely free?
Yeah, no strings attached.
And why'd you do that?
To promote good science.
Just a moment. What's that?
Objection to relevance.
Overruled.
To promote the science?
To promote the science.
That could have had great monetary value if you'd sought to sell it for profit, correct?
I'll sustain the objection. Re-ask it, please.
Would that have had great monetary value?
I haven't really thought of it. There would have been some.
Now, when you did the demonstration of the 100 milliliter bottle with the spike
Yes.
hole in it, or spike linear rent in it,
Yes.
and one of the points you made was that it had to be a vented line because otherwise the propofol would simply sit in the bottle and would not drain out unless the infusion line was vented, allowing it to flow, correct?
That is correct.
And other than knowing it had to be vented and knowing that, for example, People's 157, that infusion line was recovered at the scene, you cannot say with certainty which infusion lines were actually used on June 25th, 2009, correct?
Correct. It simply has to be vented.
And when you began testifying last, I believe it was Thursday, the October 13th, was it?
Yes.
You had not physically seen People's 157 to personally look at it, correct?
That is correct.
You had seen it on the internet,
I had seen it on the Seacoast website.
and you'd attempted to order it, but had not received it.
That is correct.
And did you have a chance to look at People's 157 this morning?
I did.
Following your testimony on Thursday, you actually were taken away from this case, at least physically and or mentally, due to a family situation you needed to deal with, correct?
That is correct.
Had you intended on physically looking at People's 157 earlier than today?
Yes.
And this was a death in your family?
Yes, that's correct.
And when you looked at People's 157 today, you observed that it was, in fact, a vented line.
It is. That is correct.
And People's 157 that I'm holding here today. And if I put it on the Elmo, can you show us to what you're referring?
Yes.
You could use the microphone as well, Mr. Walden. Thank you, when you get a chance.
Yes. This right here is a little plug, and this is a little plastic tip that can be pulled back and allow air to go in. And so this is quite clearly a vented line where air can go in and go up here so that, for example, propofol could come from a glass bottle through this tubing. That is correct.
And you, after observing People's 157 this morning and seeing that it was in fact a vented line, in my presence, did you inform Mr. Chernoff?
Yes, yes.
Now, looking at the Seacoast medical records, and I'm referring to the date of April 14th, 2009, in those records, first of all, it goes on to 2 pages, but we have the XL IV administration set, one ordered and shipped, and then the description goes on to the next page, being the IV administration set 50 count. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
All right. And is that the same product as People's 157?
Yes, it is.
And so as reflected in the April 14th, 2009 Seacoast records, that would be 50 vented infusion sets.
That's correct.
And then going to May 12th, 2009, in the same Seacoast records, which are People 79, May 12th, you have, do you see here the same XL administration set, 50 count, and 2 ordered and shipped, so that's another 100 of these infusion sets?
That's correct.
So learning that People's 157 was in fact vented, and you previously testified for the need for a vented line to infuse the propofol bottle, there are actually more vented lines, infusion lines that Dr. Murray ordered than you previously understood.
That's correct.
150 more from those 2 entries.
Correct.
Now, in the demonstration that you set up then, knowing that People's 157 is in fact vented, this line, People's 157, could have been, well, not People's 157 because there's no propofol in the long tubing, but an XL administration set could have been spiked into the propofol bottle.
Yes.
And People's 157, as you demonstrated, could have been spiked into a saline bag.
Correct.
And then joined up, as you demonstrated, at the Y connector.
Correct.
And again, with that being the scenario, you could actually do that same setup with 2 XL administration sets and not even have to utilize, I believe it was People's 80, the safe site administration set.
Correct.
And People's 157 is actually much smaller and less cumbersome than the safe site infusion set that you used for part of your demonstration.
Absolutely.
And with that set, assuming 2 XL administration sets were used, it would be the same explanation as you described, with the being consistent with propofol being in the short tubing after the Y port, because that's where the propofol would have entered from the 100 milliliter bottle.
Correct.
You were asked about the IV bag with the slit in it, and you indicated that that was unusual, seeing that.
Yes.
And in fact, many things that you've learned Conrad Murray did on June 25th and the time period preceding you found to be unusual from a medical point of view.
Yes.
Not the least of which is giving propofol in a home setting such as that.
Correct.
You're also asked about extraordinary claims. Dr. Shafer, in your opinion, is there anything extraordinary or bold